What's cracking, yo? Welcome back to Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What's cracking, y'all? Back with some new content of the Larry Bird variety because that's the most recommendations I get. So this recommendation is from subscriber/viewer Dutch T. Dutch T, I appreciate you for the recommendation. This is an interview. Dan Shaughnessy shares some great Larry Bird stories from his new Celtics book on the Rich Eisen Show. Now, Dan Shaughnessy is a Boston Globe columnist, and the book is called Wish It Never Ended, that chronicles the 1980s glory days of Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. Really interested to see what he has to say about this, and if you are a Larry Bird fan, if you're a Boston Celtics fan, you would probably like this book, and I recommend getting into it. I actually own some Laker books and some Kobe books myself, so let's get into it.
Why write the book, Dan? What struck you about the book?
Good question. I mean, again, this isn't to, we all know who won those games and the stats and Hall of Famers, but this was a time when the NBA kind of came of age, and we had this amazing access. This jumped out at me during the pandemic when the access got to zero. The moat just kept getting wider and wider, and then with abundance of caution, there's no access now. But we live with these guys. This is like when the dinosaurs and Larry Bird and myself roamed the earth. We travel with them. They flew commercial, hotels, lobbies, bars, go to practice, no closed practices, be on the bus. It was like, except for not having the groupies or the money or the fame, it was like being on the team, Rich. I mean, we were there for everything. And watching the Last Dance and some of the classics they showed in the without games going on during the pandemic, I kept seeing my young self sitting there with the giant Michael Caine glasses and the big hair, and and again, that's when the lowly media got to sit next to the bench. They hadn't figured out how to monetize those seats yet, so we were part of that. And of course, you had the Bird Magic, take over the '80s, and the Bird Magic Celtic Laker finals were like the Ali Frazier of that time. And I just had all these stories about being around these guys and the ability to tell the readers what they were like, how secure they were in their greatness, and what a special time it was when the NBA really came of age.
So you're saying at some point in Logan Airport, a Boston fan flying to Cleveland for just a business trip got to actually see Robert Parrish board a flight? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. When we would get off the plane, they were all in first class because they're so tall and they had those perks. But we'd come off the plane behind them, and you'd see these people just walking down the airport hallways, and they'd be like, oh my God, I just saw all these tall guys at one time. Those must be a basketball team. And and then the lowly writers would be trailing them, and we'd hear all the whispering about Larry Bird or Robert Parrish or whatnot. But yeah, it was we waited for bags. We did all the Rich, when the COVID bubble, when they had that tournament with no fans and in Orlando, you had to, if you went to cover that, it cost $60,000. You had to quarantine for 2 weeks and sign a waiver saying you would not talk to any athlete if you saw them anywhere.
60,
and that's where we did all of our work, was waiting for bags in the hotel bars, the lobbies, being on the bus. We were really able to tell the readers what these guys were like, and it was a very special group that they had there. The Lakers had it going in that decade as well, and the league really took off because of that.
Dan Shaughnessy here on the Rich Eisen Show. It's interesting that you have such a positive view of it, and it's sort of a very hagiographic view of it all. Me being from New York, I don't mean to stomp on your book, but I have written my own book, and if you want to, we actually have a cover. Maybe you'll see it later on. It's entitled "Thank God It Ended," living through the Bird Celtics in New York, and there's a shot on the cover of Bird shooting over Ewing in the Garden. So I have a different view.
Well, it's so funny. The '84, Hubie Brown. I just saw him last week.
He's
147 years old, like myself, and he's still doing the games, and he's so sharp and great. I love him.
Right.
I gave him a copy of the book, but the highlight of his professional life was that '84 series with Bernard King, and they took him 7 games. I mean, Bernard was averaging 40 a game. I remember Cedric Maxwell called me over during practice before the first game of that series because Bernard was getting 40 a game against the Pistons in the playoffs, and Max said, there's no way a bitch walks like this is going to get 40 off of me. And then he did a mimic of Bernard's unusual gait. And I'm like, these guys, they were trash talkers, and they didn't care. Bernard wouldn't shake his hand for the next game. Max said, hey, if you're scared, get a dog. He didn't care. It was just, that's how they were. And that series went great. And again, for Hubie, they almost beat the Celtics in Game 7 at the Garden.
I remember those Knicks, Pistons series with Kelly Tripucka
Yeah.
Right. Now, honestly, in the old Joe Louis Arena, I remember those as a kid. And then Bernard is my favorite player. It still is jarring to see Julius Randle wearing his number 30. To be very honest with you,
you're right. That's not right.
Well, I mean, hey, look, I mean, I guess Julius Randle at least is doing well by that number as far as I'm concerned. But just. Is there any story that just that you forgot about, that you found notes for?
Oh, yeah, I had little notes
like
and stuff. So, again, Larry Bird, he could hold all these things in his head during a game. So he'd have a shooting drill at the old Boston Garden, late in the afternoon by himself, dark garden, come out with an equipment guy and just do the perimeter, shoot for half hour. All you heard was swishing. I'd get there early, plug in my Stone Age computer right next to the bench. He'd come over, he'd call me Scoop. He'd say, Scoop, what are you working on? I'm like, I'm doing an early story. You were approximating the NBA record for consecutive free throws, Calvin Murphy at 88. So don't miss one tonight or I'll look bad in the paper. So during the first half, he got fouled. He's at the line. He makes the first. He looks over and winks at me before he makes the second. I mean, guys don't do that today. And he would – actually, Mike Saunders, the trainer of the Knicks.
Sure.
Larry was banking threes at Madison Square Garden before a game because he was getting bored. He won the three-point thing 3 years in a row and started banking them. And Saunders said, you can't do that in a game. And Larry said, if you give me $5, I will. And sure enough, they get way ahead of the Knicks. Fourth quarter, he banks the three. He runs by the Knick bench with his greedy palm extended. And where's my $5, Mike?
Love stories like that. Absolutely love stories like that because he was the legend. That's part of the legend of Larry Legend, and that's
well,
right.
And the legend. So he was so dense. All he cared about was basketball. He's poor guy, rural Southern Indiana, and worked his butt off. Became great. Mm-hmm. We were at the Atrium in Dallas to play the Mavericks, and we're in the hotel bar. It's a day off, and Springsteen is playing next door at the Reunion Arena. And the doors flew open, and kids came rushing through the lobby to get to the concert. Mm-hmm. And Larry looks up, and he goes, what's that all about? I said, well, Bruce Springsteen's playing next door tonight. He said, who's that? And I said, Larry, he's the you of rock and roll. He goes, oh, he must be pretty good then. And, he got tickets. He went. He said, yeah, it's too loud for me. I don't like that music. But he sweats a lot, and I appreciate that work ethic.
That's the legend. There's no doubt about that. So did he really know where the spots on the floor were? Like the dead spots on the floor? Or is that just the legend
I mean,
stuff?
the Bull Gang, when you have the ice and the parquet, you're going back and forth, and they assemble it. And Cheers did a whole episode on the bolts and all that stuff. So no one really knew. It changed from game to game. And when they would reassemble the rims, when he was doing that shooting drill in the afternoon, anytime he missed one, he'd say, Bull Gang screwed that up. There's something wrong with the basket. It's off by a quarter an inch. Otherwise, that would have been nothing but net. So, he had the thing down. But that's a myth that anyone actually knew when the ball wasn't going to come back to you.
Yeah, I know. Again, all of these things are why I wrote my book, Thank God It Ended, because honestly, just McHale and Parrish, I despised ML Carr growing up because he would just wave the towel.
He was baiting people.
Oh, my gosh. He did nothing. He did nothing but wave a towel. That's all I thought he did.
ML Carr, he was a guard in a federal prison before coming to the NBA. He played in Israel. He played overseas, played for the St. Louis Spirits. Asked Costas about that. And he was Larry Bird's bodyguard for the first 5 years of Larry's career. He had very little skill at the end, but he got in the heads of the Lakers in the greatest final ever in '84. He would pound on their door before the game and say, come out here, you L.A. fakers. Come out and take your beating like men. Come on out here, Tragic Johnson. I mean, they didn't care. And then at the end of the game, he'd steal the ball and go dunk on him and just make him even more furious.
You're loving these stories, Brockman. I know you're.
I mean, I cannot wait for this.
It's all great. What's Auerbach's role in all of this?
Well, Red was just smart when the whole chess when others are playing checkers. He assembled these teams. Go back and look at those rosters in '84 when the Celtics beat Worthy, Magic, Kareem. Those guys were all blue chip conference. UCLA, North Carolina, Michigan State. The Celtics starting five went to Virginia Commonwealth, North Carolina Charlotte, Indiana State, Centenary, and Pepperdine. So Red would say, easy to get blue chip and win like that. Let's see you do what I do, win with guys from second-tier conferences. There was all kinds of layers to that. And Red, I loved Red. My old man smoked cigars and windows rolled up, driving to the dump every Saturday, so I was used to it. I enjoyed being around that. And he was wise, and everybody hated him. And he hated New York. Do you want to know why he hated New York, Rich?
Why is that?
Because he grew up there, but he felt that the NIT screwed his George Washington team out of the NIT appearance in 1937, and he never forgave that. He said they just didn't want a little school from Washington to come in and beat their ass, St. John's and all my ass, And he never forgot it, and he couldn't get past his hatred of all things New York, even though he was a Brooklyn guy.
Of course.
Yeah, Brooklyn guy and everything, but still had that hate for New York, man. Red is, I say this again. Red is a cool ass mofo, man, with his cigar and the glasses. That dude, he is straight out of, I can't say Hollywood because he's from Boston, but you know what I mean. Dude, just cool swag goo about him, bro. I would love to hang out with Red Auerbach, man. And then, no, he's absolutely right, man. Dude was a genius. Even when it comes down to, like, obviously, I don't know everything. I only know what I know, but I know about Larry Bird, and doctors were basically like, hey, this guy's damaged goods. And then Red was like, basically like, nah, we're taking him. And then even with Bill Walton, they were showing that, I think the story was they showed him the x-rays, and they were like, dude, this guy's basically a vegetable. And then, like, Red looked to Bill Walton, and he was like, hey, can you play? He's like, coach, I think I can. All right. Crazy stuff like that would not happen today. They listen to these doctors so much that they wouldn't take a risk like that. But you got to, man. When you're talking about talent like that, and you trust the players for their word. But back then, people really wanted to play. It was all about hustle. It was all about heart. It was all about the love of the game. Now, you'll be hard-pressed to find a lot of players that share that mentality. It's more about the money, the fame, the groupies now than the actual love for the game itself. And maybe, there's so much money involved now compared to the league back then. But there's so much access now that all these players have. A lot of distractions, and they do it for the clout, and they do it for all other reasons. But a lot of these players don't love basketball. They do it for the money. They don't care if they get out on the court, as long as they're getting a decent paycheck. They'll ride the bench. They're happy with that. I love the game of basketball so much. And I want to play above all else. Then my mindset, me personally, I don't need all the money in the world. How much money is enough? So what I'm going to do with that money? How I'm going to invest that money. Right? At the end of the day, I'm going to die, and then all my hard-earned money is going to end up going to somebody else, dispersed to other people. So how much money do I really need? That's just my outlook on life. I like to spend and enjoy if I can, while I can, if possible, and worry about it later. But when I die, I can't take any of this shit with me. Somebody else is going to take my money and blow it. But Larry loved the game. Larry loved the game so much that he wouldn't take the money from the Boston Celtics because he felt like he didn't live up to his end of the bargain. And he said, I'm not taking this money. I got to earn this money. Left money on the table. That wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen today. That wouldn't happen back then. Like I said, I can't think of any player that would do something like that. That rested on their morals so hard that they would do something like that. Even though Larry Bird deserved each and every penny. So many great stories revolving around Larry Bird and on this channel. And because you all have been submitting videos to me, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about his history and as a player, and I've learned a lot about the man, Larry Bird. It's been an interesting journey. I'll say that. Y'all keep coming at me with more recommendations. Anything. Doesn't have to be Larry Bird. I'm willing to check out lots of stuff. I find it fun because, I have my ideas of things that I want to do, and then you guys throw other stuff at me, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, crap, I never thought of that player. Never thought of that topic. Oh, that's fun to me. That's fun. When you guys throw stuff at me, things that I haven't thought about, that's fun. That's engaging. I like engaging with you all. So yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate it. I most certainly do. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out other playlists. Hit the bell. Share the word. We out here. I'll catch you on the next one. Salute. Salute to you, Dutch T. Salute to everybody else. We out, baby.